The opposition leaders accused the government of bullying journalists and called on it to reject recent recommendations to tighten media regulation. The government says it hasn't agreed to anything suggested in that Finkelstein review, but that didn't stop Tony Abbott saying it was effectively censoring the media. And he again promised to repeal racial discrimination laws, which Conservative columnist Andrew Bolt ran afoul of last year. Political correspondent Tom Iggulden has more from Canberra.
Tony Abbott.
The Conservative leader made his remarks at a Conservative think tank and won the crowd over before he spoke a word. Only then began the speech about freedom of speech.
This is a very important issue. There is really no more important issue because this is a foundational issue.
The opposition leaders got a problem with the Finkelstein review of the media, which the Prime Minister ordered last year in the wake of the News Limited phone hacking scandal.
Thinly veiled intimidation of critics masquerading as proposals for better regulation.
The opposition leader says the review's part of a pattern of government intimidation.
There's the jihad against mining magnates for daring to question the government's investment-sapping mining tax. The ferocity of this government's return of service often goes way beyond reasonable counter-argument to become a form of state-sponsored bullying.
The government has been engaged in a long-running war of words with News Limited, from the mouth of the Communications Minister.
The Australian don't bother reporting news anymore, they're engaged in regime change.
To the Prime Minister herself.
But if I could put it as clearly as I can, I'd say to you, don't write crap. Can't be that hard.
And News Limited's been fighting back, promising to take the government to the High Court if it tries to implement the Finkelstein Review's suggestions to tighten media regulation.
Just because the numbers in the House of Representatives are tight and the government's hold on the Treasury bench is more tenuous than usual, reporters should not feel under pressure to turn a blind eye to potential scandal.
Tony Abbott's speech today had a familiar echo.
A hung parliament hasn't made this government more responsive. Instead, the constant struggle to survive has brought out its authoritarian streak. It is not, repeat, not the role of government to manage the day-to-day practices of journalism.
The main recommendation of the Finkelstein Review was a tougher media complaints system to replace the existing Australian Press Council. But the government says there's just one problem with Tony Abbott's outrage over the proposal. It hasn't decided whether or not it'll adopt it. But the opposition leader wasn't done there. He sees the recent prosecution of Conservative columnist Andrew Bolt under the Racial Discrimination Act as an injustice, reiterating he'd changed the law to stop it from happening again.
So if it's all right for David Marr, for instance, to upset conservative Christians in his attempt to have them see the error of their ways, why is it not all right for Andrew Bolt to upset activist Aboriginals to the same end?
The racial vilification legislation was created to deal with much wider cases than just Andrew Bolt. And it's a bad principle for Tony Abbott to be creating legislation for one of his mates, whether it's Gina Rinehart, Clive Palmer or Andrew Bolt.
Expect more newsprint to be devoted to this one. Tom Iggulden, Lateline.